I don't want this precisely to be about me, because that's just annoying. I want to shed light on the fact that this is on my belief that this is a universal problem of public concern in Canada and elsewhere. And I can do that because the worst thing the college can do to me is, well, the worst thing they can do is suspend my license and make a public statement that because of my refusal to comply with their dictates, I'm no longer acceptable as a licensed clinical psychologist. And I don't want them to do that because I believe that I earned my license and am also a good advocate on the clinical front. I don't want to be in a position where faceless bureaucrats motivated by a political agenda and whatever envy and resentment they carry in their dark and nasty little hearts have the opportunity to strip me of something that I spent a decade of extremely hard work earning. But if they do strip it from me, well, first of all, that's not going to redound to their credit. Second, I can probably get licensed in a jurisdiction like Florida with a bit of work if I wanted to.
That'd be satisfying.
Yeah,
Who wants to be part of this creepy little club of psychologists that are just telling people lies anyway? If the entire profession is being forced to not tell their clients the truth, then maybe you should drop that club.
It's worse than that. It's worse than that, Mikhaila. The bodies that govern the training programs for clinical psychologists in Canada, the Canadian Psychological Association, has increasingly moved to make it mandatory for universities that offer clinical psychology training to do that under the rubric of social justice or face the suspension of the accreditation of their programs. And that's also happening in medicine. Everyone listening, you bloody well better listen to this, people, because we're entering a situation where the universities themselves are required to ensure that your physicians and your psychologists are of a particular political stripe, which essentially means radically left, not just left, but radically left, like social justice, full, woke, critical racist theory, oppressive, patriarchal narrative, feminist left wing, or the institution itself will not be allowed to train physicians or psychologists. And I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory, and well, go look it up for yourself and see if it's true, because it's true right down to the last word. And so if you Canadians, you think you're going to be served well by craven political ideologues who are primarily selected to be physicians on the basis of their political purity, you've got a bloody another thing coming. That didn't work out so well in Eastern Europe. Let me tell you, it's not going to work out very well for us either. And so part of the reason I'm willing to make this battle public is to try to alert people to the fact that we're a hell of a lot farther down this road than we think. You know, I went through Eastern Europe for 4 months this spring, talking to people there. I had the privilege of meeting 30 or 40 people in each country who were political or cultural leaders across the political spectrum, including leftists who'd been mobbed like mad by their own compatriots. And every single one of the people I talked to, virtually without exception in Eastern Europe, said something like, do you know what happened here between the end of the Second World War in 1989 when we were dominated by the communists? Do you know how awful it was here? That was particularly true in Albania. Do you know you people in the West are walking down exactly the same road? What the hell's wrong with you? Don't you notice? And this included the socialists in those Eastern European countries, who remember the tender mercies of the radical leftists and the fact that, 1 out of 3 people in most of those countries, even if they were within your own family, were government informers. And where the joke was, we pretend to work and they pretend to pay us, and where people spent hours in bread lines and fought over terrible little rat hole apartments as they were quasi-starving to death, unable to ever tell the truth or speak.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, no, and that's why you're in Florida.
I know. Florida is great. It's weird. People here are weird, but it's good weird. It's free weird.
Yeah.
It's not stifled Toronto right now. I hate it there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you felt going back there, and I don't know how, I've got lots of friends in Toronto, but It is not the same Toronto as it was in 2015 or 2016. You go there, it's kind of like California. You can feel the weight of silence in that place.
Yeah, well, your mom and I have been back here for a month. We're pretty worried about coming back because we've faced a fair bit of resistance in our neighborhood. Like, I'm probably more unpopular in some sense in Toronto, and more particularly in my neighborhood, than I am anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
And so it was somewhat worrisome to come back to Toronto.
It's very worrisome.
My son moved out of our neighborhood in part because it was uncomfortable for him to be there, even though that's where he grew up, thanks to the machinations of certain neighbors. It's been hard on your mom too, because I come downstairs, the other day when I was going through what happened in 2016, I came downstairs, I could hardly stand up. A lot of the symptoms I had over the last couple of years came back. And that's really pretty frightening for me and for her to see. I had to sit down on the floor 5 or 6 times.
This sounds like PTSD.
Well, who knows, what it is. But I recovered fairly quickly,
still,
which is, an indication of my return to health. But it's hard on your mom too, because I'm bitchy as can possibly be after going upstairs and wrestling with this material. And, we had a big conversation this week about how she should be involved, because I don't want to drag her into this. And, and she doesn't want to blame me for being entangled in it. And we don't want to stress our relationship. So I don't know how much to protect her from this and how much to share with her. I thought, well, maybe when I'm writing out my college defense, I should go to a hotel room and, grapple with it there, because I'm much more irritable, at least for some period of time after confronting all of this. Like, it's calmed down a bit now that I've got my argument, in order. I've looked through all the material. There isn't any snakes left under the carpet to bite me. And so I think I'm through the most demanding part of it, although God only knows what's going to happen as this unfolds, because there's always the possibility I'll make a mistake while I'm defending myself too, because I could easily do that because it's so complicated. But your mom and I are on the same page in relationship to this, which is, she believes that if I just say what's happening, if I do my best to tell the truth without adornment and to try to keep my volatile temper under control, that this will turn out the way things have turned out for us in the past, which is it'll be rather dreadful in the short term, but resolve itself somewhat favorably in the medium to long run. But that's easy to say when the medium to long run hasn't made itself manifest yet.
The Bible is the root of all wisdom, inspiration, and spiritual nourishment. The Hallow app empowers you to explore the Bible's profound teachings and to effortlessly incorporate them into your daily life. A great place to start while you deepen your understanding of the Bible is to check out Father Mike Schmitz's Bible in a Year, available on the Hallow app for brief daily readings and reflections. Here you can dive into an extensive library of Bible reading plans, accompanied by insightful reflections and audio-guided meditations. Whether you're a seasoned Bible reader or just starting your journey, Hallow provides a platform for you to engage with Scripture like never before. Studying the Bible's literary brilliance has influenced countless writers, poets, and artists throughout history. By studying the Bible yourself, you'll gain a deeper appreciation for the power of storytelling, symbolism, and metaphor, enriching your understanding of literature across different genres. The Hallow app also helps you connect with a community of like-minded individuals, sharing experiences, insights, and encouragement along the path to spiritual growth. Download the app for free at hallow.com/Jordan. You can set reminders and track your progress along the way. Enrich your education and nurture your mind and soul today. Download the Hallow app at hallow.com/Jordan. That's hallow.com/Jordan. hallow.com/Jordan for an exclusive 3-month free trial of all 10,000 plus prayers and meditations.
This might just be something that's happening that no one can really get out of. And by that I mean, we see what direction the universities are going in. So you can fight back against that. But basically at the moment, going to get a university degree seems like maybe not the best idea if you end up in hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, being taught by ideologues, and then being taught information that won't lead to a job. Just seems like a scam, right? And if this is what's going on with colleges, and if they're controlling working professionals so that the working professionals have to work in a way that isn't truthful, I mean, how do you fight back against that? At what point do you just stop playing in that game?
Well, people have asked me that too. Why don't you just give up your license? And I would say, well, because I wouldn't be giving it up. I would be allowing it to be taken away from me. Like if I decide in a year that I don't want to be a licensed clinical psychologist because the whole damn profession has become corrupt, that's a whole different issue than letting this pack of craven commissar cowards organized behind the scenes utilize the complaints of random people online to justify their own envy and desire to prosecute and then fold in the face of that opposition. It's like, I'm not going to do that. And now you say, well, what do you do? And I think the only answer to that is, I think the only thing you have in a complex situation is the truth. That's all you have. That's why you have to abide by the truth, because when things get complex around you, how do I deal with this politically? How do I deal with this personally? What do I say in this terribly complex situation? All you have there that's solid ground is the truth. And one of the things to reflect upon in relationship to that is, that's also why you have to live honestly, because it's very hard to tell the truth if you're simultaneously worried that the evidence of your past misbehavior, your past deceitful misbehavior is going to come to light. And so the reason you abide by the truth is so that you can say what you have to say about what you've done and who you are, and you can do that under impossibly difficult circumstances, and possibly that will sustain you through that in circumstances where if that's not possible, you're just going to get crushed. And people might say, well, being investigated by your professional body isn't exactly a life-threatening event, and you're just whining. It's like, look, for all you people who think that this is such a walk in the park, I'll tell you two things. Number one, I've known about 200 people who face this sort of thing now, and every single one of them, with the exception of those people who like a fight, right, a tiny, tiny minority of people, maybe one or two in that entire 200, they reacted as if they or someone they loved had contracted a life-threatening illness. I've known people, very stable people, extremely elegant, polished, educated, well-positioned, well-supported people who literally ended up in psych wards because of the pressure that was brought to bear on them by the accusatory mob. And so those of you who think this is a cakewalk, you just bloody well wait till your neighbors show up on your doorstep with pitchforks and torches, and you just see what that's like for yourself. So you better watch yourself very carefully if you think that the people who are complaining about being mobbed are just complaining because they can't take it.
Yeah.
So,
well, that you also hear about. I mean, that's a silly thing to think too. You hear about university students who you can get bullied online. It's not life-threatening, but it is life-threatening to some people. Like, it makes some people suicidal from stress.
Well, look, there's two great classes of fear, Mikhaila. There's only two. One of them is death and physiological and psychological disintegration. So you could think about that as the terror of biological vulnerability. That's one class of fears. The second great class of fear is fear of social exclusion. And part of the reason is that historically, if you're socially excluded, you're dead. So they're the same fear, because your social inclusion protects you from dying, right? You work with other people, you cooperate with them, you play with them, you eat with them, you're dependent on their labor. You're literally sustained in your life by your social desirability and your inclusion. And so if that's taken away from you, your reputation is sullied or shattered, people shun you, not only are you lonesome and isolated, but you're really in trouble. And your nervous system reacts to that as if it's a mortal threat, which it is.